What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Natty News Daily podcast. We've got a returning guest, a special guest, a fellow Canadian guest, Mr. Matt Butale, natural. I will repeat, natural IFBB Pro, because I know you get the DMs, I know you get the call outs, and rightfully so, dude. You look like an absolute unit. But welcome to the podcast, my man.
Thanks for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be on the podcast, man. It's a joy, and I can't wait
Yeah,
to dive into today's topic. It's going to be not one of hovering. We're going to be diving into and actually giving you guys like the real time what's going on.
yeah,
This is no longer what's Matt going to do in 2023, 2024. It's what is Matt doing, and I just want to answer that so badly.
yeah.
I'm so excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. So for those that maybe don't know, you're 2 weeks away from stepping on stage again at the Ben Weiders. You want to talk about that real quick?
Hell yeah, 14 days exactly. So it's been a while, I haven't been on stage in 3 years. At least if I wasn't competing this year, it would have been 3 years, but it's been a while. And the feeling of prep, although I haven't experienced it in 3 years, it
Hmm.
feels so familiar. Like it's almost like I didn't miss because you have to get into that similar mind state, if not
Yeah,
a better one, like a sharper one. And I think I've really done that this time around, given myself some time to just relax in those couple of years and live life and, just be
yep,
a human being and not
yeah,
always be focus driven, which now I'm going to change. We're going to talk about that later on. But it gave me a real sense of clarity and not only nostalgia, but it's sort of like when you look in the mirror, metaphorically speaking, and you can see your old self in the best possible way. Like all of your peaks, all of your biggest accomplishments, like everything good about yourself is what I see and sort of how I feel now.
yeah,
It's a familiar feeling, it's a nostalgic one, and I'm super grateful to be doing this again. It's been a while. If you were to ask me about nerves, like anxiousness, again, it's a pro debut. I've never been on an IFBB Pro stage naturally or
yep,
in general. So to answer that, no, it's the same feeling I would feel for any other competition. It's like I'm going to bring what I can, have
yep.
the same state of mind, and just that's it.
Just do the thing.
But yeah, do the thing and see where I fall. Dust off. This is the dust off show again. After 3 years, you gotta like sort of put your feet in there, not just dive in thinking like, oh, this is the outcome that I'm going to expect without like
Yeah,
building the receipt, the track record. So we are
yeah,
building the receipt, the track record here, and feels super good to just get back into those shoes and look in in the mirror and see that guy again.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, you know me. I'm a fan of that extended time away from the stage, not only to like be a human again, like you mentioned, but to improve, right? And for you, you're obviously now making that leap from, you turned pro in 2021.
You got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So walked away with IFBB Pro card at the Natural Pro Qualifier here in Canada. And then it's like, okay, the next step is a big one, right? Even though you have a bigger step coming, this step is still a big one, right? And you're going to be against athletes that maybe have been pro for a period of time before or whatever, right? So it's kind of I know you're not a little fish, but in a sense, you're kind of jumping into that big pond, right?
I'll take it. I'll be the sardine today. It's fine. Technically, I have no track record, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to be the one to say I'm a big fish or I even a fish. Who knows? Maybe I'm some freaking like bacteria. I'm not even big enough. But who knows? Got to step on stage and get your results, right? So that's the first thing. And then also, that's it really just gave me a flashback what you said there, Leroy, and I like it. Because initially, the first and this happens with every single competitor. Let me know if this is you before you do your first show, you've done those shows ever in your life, that feeling of going on the stage for the first time, I think is equivalent to having competed for 10 years and then also achieving the next goal. So, for example, you get your pro card. Awesome. That competition that you get your pro card at it's probably going to feel very similar to the first show in terms of nerves because of what the stakes are.
Yep.
And once you achieve that, it's like awesome. It's like competing for the first time. Awesome. That's no longer a problem. I can compete. Let's have fun. I get the pro card, no longer a problem. Have fun. And now the next goal is the Olympia, or the next goal is this, the next goal is that, and then you feel that feeling again.
Yeah,
And
you get new firsts.
new firsts. That's exactly what it is, and that's what this feels like. So the old first was let's get your pro card. That's what you are grinding as an amateur for. You could say you're no longer amateur. Boom. Now we're in the second pond, right? The new first. Go
Yeah.
on stage, be an IFBB pro. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. on here, you're comfortable competing as an IFBB Pro. What's next? And that it's not even a question, it just becomes a response. It's a natural development,
Yeah.
I think, in something as, you know, oriented around self-development as bodybuilding,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's inevitable. So I'll be honest, I never really felt like a big fish. Like even winning nationals and stuff like that, the mentality, the feeling I felt backstage was very similar to, I'm sure, 99% of what everyone else felt. It's just I also felt that in the off season and every single rep and every single gram. And
Hmm.
it's almost like an OCD. You don't let you just think that no one else is doing what you're doing, and you hope that. And so when you go on stage, your physique is that much different. At
Yep.
least that's how I look at it. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of new firsts, bro.
Yeah, man. Super exciting. Okay, let's dive into a little bit of meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about, and that is not only the Canadian Natural Pro Show that's been announced, which interestingly enough, they didn't really formally announce. It was kind of just like dropped in descriptions of Instagram posts. That's like, hey, show up next year kind of deal. Like I was expecting, because I've known subtly about this for a while. It was just kind of like maybe gonna happen, don't really know when, kind of waiting in the wings. And now it's formally out there publicly on social media. But there was no big like shebang announcement from the CPA or the Natural Pro Qualifier Instagram or whatever, which I found super interesting. I thought it would have made a lot of sense to hype that up. But next year, for those that don't know, the day after the Natural Pro Qualifier, so August 2nd is the Pro Qualifier, August 3rd is the first ever Canadian Natural IFBB Pro Show, which is obviously huge, right? The IFBB, the NPC slash CPA has been diving into the
Yep.
natural stream rather aggressively. Mind you, especially here in Canada, we've had natural shows and big natural shows for years. And the NPC, I believe, has had a sprinkle of shows here and there, but they're going hard into the natural stream now. And it was like, okay, well, you've got all these amateur shows, you've had the Ben Weiders for a couple of years, like what else is there, right? Like when I turned pro, and this is something you and I talked about, after you turn pro, is like, well, I have one show. I have the Ben Weiders, right? Like, sure, you could rock up to the New York Pro or the Tampa Pro or whatever, but like it's not tested, so immediately assuming you're kind of like low tier at that show. So it's like, okay, what's going to be the response to that? Because the natural stream continues to grow and arguably at a much faster rate in more popularity than the untested side of the sport. So it's like, well, you need to give these athletes a platform eventually. And here we are, right? We have, the Ben Weiders is obviously growing, Canadian IFBB Pro Show. I know they've talked about more eventually coming down the pipeline, like not only in Canada, but globally. So as for you as an athlete, what does that mean to you now, right? You're a natural IFBB pro. So up until recently, it's like I got one show. I got the Ben Weiders. I got the Ben Weiders. I got the Ben Weiders. Can maybe take me to the Olympia, but right now I have one option. Every single year, I kind of have one show to do that I can bank on and be competitive and try to win and all that stuff. But now we got doors opening. So what do you think of that?
First off, that was a wonderful recap of like I guess an update in the Natty News sort of realm, because a lot of people that know of the Natty IFBB scene know of this new update, which is the fact that not only do they have the show that's being displayed, the Natural IFBB Pro Qualifier, which I honestly in my heart feels like a Natty Toronto Pro show. Like you got the regular Toronto Pro, you got the
Yeah, it's
Natty Toronto Pro.
huge.
That's how I look at it, and it's massive. And this is amazing for myself, for all the natural athletes, for all of the natural amateurs that want to compete in the IFBB. I've had quite a few guys recently this week come up to me in the gym, and some old returning clients come up to me and message me talking about like literally just, you know what, I'm done being natural. Let's, go to the other side because I'll have stuff to do there. And that's when I had the conversation that we're having because, and you know, I'm going to talk about it right now, but you're right. There isn't that much coverage in the NPC, CPA, IFBB natural side with the new stuff that's come out. Maybe it's just too fresh
Yeah.
and people just haven't, it's not in their brains yet, but a lot of people don't know. And so there's no incentive, right? And now that this is out, this is a reality, there's more incentive, right? And I think I commented on that very post saying that, this is amazing. So it's, some of the best news because you have an incentive for these guys to compete compared to all the other divisions. You got your OCB, WNBF, all that. They've got a fuck ton of shows to do. Hell of a lot of shows. Amazing.
Yep. Yep.
But what's the point of being a Natty IFBB Pro if you could do one show? Now, the question sounds redundant, but at the same time, if you asked me, I would say no different because as like at the top level as an amateur in the CPA, I was only competing once a year,
Yeah.
right? I only competed twice to double qualify classic and bodybuilding, right?
Yep.
And that was during COVID. It was horrible, actually. It was I did a King Kong. I think you remember. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you do,
remember
but
that.
I
I remember
yeah, I
that.
cut 30 pounds in like 3 weeks. It was horrible. Looked
Yeah.
like garbage. Still won. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Weak
So
weak
that was
show.
the you said it, not me, bro. So yeah, that's the only time I ever competed twice, in a year even, I think. And I was just always used to taking the time in the year to improve where I can and then jump on the stage. Never been hungry to grace the stage every second ever in my life, right? Like, because it takes a lot for me to get to that. Because when I give my all, I give it my all. And you can't
Yep.
give it your all the time or you'd be dead, right?
It's true.
Especially as a natural, it's just you have to regulate. And once a year was the goal, and it was always one goal, and that goal is the first one was at least at nationals, win nationals, cool. Turn pro. I actually wrote it. Damn it, it's actually here in my notebook. This is my little posing because I was choreographing earlier today. I wrote it years ago. What is it? This is the old scheme. I know you remember this. So 2017 competed at a level one show, 2018 level two show and provincials, and then 2019 CBBF, 2020 IFBB stage. It says right here. I don't know if that's clear enough, but I wrote this when I was like at least 18, 19.
Hmm.
Ended up turning pro 2021, so not that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing was one thing, one goal, one win at a time. And you don't get one win at a time by going to several shows. You get several wins, which is awesome, but that wasn't my fix.
Yeah.
So doing the Ben Weiders, naturally in my mind and habitually, I was married to the system of once a year. So it didn't really bug me. Uh, Again, I never really jumped on stage that frequently.
Yep.
But now knowing that there are these other opportunities, the way that I look at it is like more chances to do the one goal. So I'm not going to do every natural show to do every natural show. I'll do any natural show that I need to in order to get that one goal taken care of. So God forbid I don't get it at this show, I get it at that show. And if not, that's when I compete repetitively to achieve that goal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So
Yep.
incentive, that's incentive. Opportunity, it's there. It's there for you to take. You can take them all. You can take what you need to get to where you need to go. And that's how I look at this. And also to give credit to the CPA Natural IFBB Pro Qualifier. I know it's kind of quiet right now, but it's very fresh. And these shows, and you can attest to this, you've got a bunch of clients that come there and dominate, are growing like wildfire every year to the
Yep.
point where King Kong, which is for those of you that don't know, a very, very popular natural, and they also do have an open stream bodybuilding competition for amateurs amongst the CPA, which is the equivalent of the American NPC. It's massive and it grows like wildfire every year. They have to change venues and so many things happen on the fly. I volunteered last year to really just see what goes on behind shows, and it was hectic. And
No, it's
it's bigger
wild.
now, right?
Yeah.
So now imagine that, but you got a natural IFBB show. So the old venue that these guys have been using since 2018, who knows if it's going to be the same venue, if it's going to have the same capacity. Like there's so many metrics and things and variables that nobody really considers when it comes to like these shows and stuff like that and logistics and all. So I think that it's not that it's quiet, it's just that light introduction. Like it was already word of mouth sort of thing when I went to go watch the Toronto Pro Show last year, watch my buddy Niall Darwin, win the show. And around there, I was talking to Rudy, and he's a promoter of the that show, if you guys don't know, the Natural IFAB pro qualifier. And he let me know. He's like, hey, this is something we're gonna do, and we're gonna add X amount of shows for naturals and this and that. And one of my other
Yep.
buddies, who's also a natural pro, Garrett,
Yep.
men's physique,
Yep.
was whispering the same thing in my ear. Same thing with Dimitri, Vinci Dragon. Same thing. Tony was there. Tony Koch. He said he heard the same thing. So I'm like, oh, it's slowly coming about. So that means they've either talked to the officials and had this confirmed, and
Yeah.
they don't have the venues yet. Like, but this is a solid thing. So slowly over the months, like as an insider, I heard it sort of more and more, and it just reached the point where I think everybody in the inside knows about it. So it's like a telling everybody thing, but not a
Yeah.
presentation thing because there's like no venue booked. I don't know. Because who knows the scale of this thing, right? I
Yeah.
don't. And
Yeah.
that's what I'll bank on. I'll give them credit where credit's due because when it's time to make noise, they're the noisiest, and I love it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? They're good. But we'll see. After I think in around whenever they start announcing the new show repetitively, maybe 20 weeks out, I think that's when we're gonna start to really hear it, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
yeah.
know like it popped off when I posted it on Natty News. I think it got like
Oh yeah,
150 shares, I think, which is wild
and
because
growing, yeah.
I think people were just like, "Oh shit, it actually is happening." You know what I mean? Like if you and I are kind of in the know locally, but if you're A, not in the know locally, and B, not local, you got no idea what's going to happen, right? So it would have come as a pretty big shock.
Yeah.
So now the big carrot is drug testing, right? And this is something that I'm passionate about. I know you're passionate about. I know a lot of the people watching are very passionate about. And it's a point of contention and discussion, not only within, this side of this organization and that kind of stuff, but just the sport in general, right? It's like how do we clean up natural bodybuilding, right? How do we truly make it natural for guys like you and I that are lifetime natural athletes that want to compete naturally against people on the same playing field? And is there a perfect solution? No, but conversations like this hopefully can help, solve problems and open up conversation with people that can maybe make decisions that make the sport better. So you're doing the Ben Weiders and you are doing a polygraph. So that's something that previously within the NPC, CPA, IFBB was not a thing. If the natural shows they did urine testing, I can vouch for the urine testing being good at some shows, not good at others. I've witnessed some shows regularly pulling people immediately off stage because I've been backstage with athletes and been like, "Hey, you're overall winner. Come with me," or you're someone that's randomly tested that just looks impressive, looks suspicious, whatever it may be. And I've seen it. I've seen the testing, but I've also been at shows where I haven't seen it. Right? I haven't seen overall winners tested. I haven't seen people who, from my eye, look, man, you got two or three symptoms that just don't add up, right? Like, please test this man. So they're going on urine testing for sure, but now polygraph. So you were talking to me before we come on air about the polygraph thing. So you got a notification that that's something you're going to have to do before the Ben Weeders.
Yeah, so that's this is gonna be a deep topic, and I hope nobody gets offended, but this is just the truth. Yeah, that's what this is. So they're doing, I think, for the very first time, and I think Tyler Mannion is the one who announced it earlier. I'm not sure last year or this year
Yeah,
that
it might have been early this year, but it's been quite
yes,
some time since that video
yes,
dropped.
right, and he announced that they were introducing the polygraphs to the Ben Weider. So that's amazing. Um, to my knowledge, well, first of all, like that right now, currently to this day, is the only natural IFBB Pro show. But even amongst the top level of the amateurs, like this show, right, the Natural Canada, you got your urine testing, but you don't do the polygraph. So maybe this is a new standard that the amateur and the professional ranks, between NPC, CPA, and IFBB Natural side. Maybe they cater to that, and that would be really awesome. I would love to see that happen as a trend because then, in terms of like integrity, you could price match with the other divisions, not to even compare in the first place, but again, that's always something that's thrown in there. It's so this organization does this and this organization does that. Why doesn't this one? So
Yeah.
they're doing more, which is awesome. And in my heart, I at least hope that we lean more and more into this stuff. When it comes to the testing, myself personally, again, I volunteered at the show after I turned pro just to help them out. And I've seen guys get tested for the first time in actually my natural bodybuilding career. Random guys get tested.
Yep.
And I was part of that. Like I would help them, get their stuff, bring them downstairs, get them to piss. I was literally watching them take a piss in the cup. Some guys that were placing second were actually getting tested even. And it was very interesting to see on the outside looking in, because I remember doing it myself. It was speedy. Like you don't even get to like it's almost militant. Like I almost got
Yeah.
checked when I got off stage. They dragged my ass right into the
Yep.
washroom
As it
downstairs
should
and I
be.
took a piss, right? It's like I even when my buddy Tony Koch in 2018 turned pro, I wanted to congratulate him. I was on stage with him. And then as soon as we pass literally the
Yep.
back exit, like you're tackled.
Yep. Come with me.
Yeah, they're like stalking you. So they're on it, and that's good. So I've never not seen anybody get tested at that show. I competed at Ben Weider, so I don't know what it's like. It's
Yep.
unfamiliar territory to me. Matter of fact, I've never competed outside of Canada, so this will be a first.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know what to expect, but I am optimistic because they are the first one to take the initiative of also adding a polygraph test,
Yep.
right? And again, something it made me scratch my head earlier on. I think I spoke to you about it before we got on the air here, was the sort of time frame um, when it comes to using substances, anabolics, hormones, all those things. And in the IFBB natural stream, the limit is 3 years, right? So it's not like other organizations where it's lifetime or 10 plus years.
10. Yeah.
In the IFBB, it's actually not even 3 years. It's 3 years and up to 6 months with certain things, like
Certain
certain
substances.
stimulants,
Yeah.
right? So 6 months to 3 years, but all the actual gear, like hard stuff, is like 3 years. But you still have some other tricky things that natural shouldn't be taking, but that's like
Yep.
a 6 month sort of thing. And there
Yep.
is like a 2 or 3 strikes you're out sort of rule here with suspensions and then expulsion from the entire federation. So they do punish. They do have their limits, but compared to everything else, I would much rather be compared to lifetime naturals. Um, that's the easiest way you can clean it up. And if you have a polygraph, again, polygraphs aren't the most accurate thing, but if you have a polygraph and you can ask someone if they've been in a lifetime natural, that's, I think, even psychologically
Yeah.
would filter out anybody that would want to weasel through because prep alone, you can't even not worry about tying your shoelaces.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to like guilt a whole
Yeah.
show and
Trying to
you know what I
lie.
mean?
Yeah.
You wouldn't even go. You wouldn't even spend the money to get the airplane and all. You wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a
Yeah.
really, really great deterrent, I think it would be. But also in the eyes of the promoters, what they see, right? So it's less of the money. It's less
As
people, less
people. Yeah.
IFBB pros doing it. Because like you got guys that they turn pro and then they hop on and they compete, or guys that in the past have taken substances or were pro years ago, taking substances and they've been off and they're like retired, like they're older. So they come, and then they dominate these shows or they do whatever
Yeah.
they're going to do. I don't, they have a clear advantage. And I don't know how anybody doesn't see that, but I'm
Yeah.
never going to be the guy to argue against someone with an advantage. I mean, sure, you're good and you have an advantage, but I want, like, just the competitor in me wants to be so much better that it doesn't matter if you have an advantage. But realistically, that is unfair in natural bodybuilding. Like, you
Yeah.
can't, like, nobody can really, what is your counter to that? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Other than being a lifetime natty.
Yeah. So I've got the rules pulled up here. So this is right from the NPC News Online website, right? So no confusion. Matt and I aren't pulling shit out of the air. So real quick, so natural regional contests, all open class winners will be urine tested. Okay. So not only, I assume that would include overall winners too. So open class winners. So we're talking about at least, a decent percentage of the show is being urine tested. Love that. Or 50% of the competitors tested by polygraph. So how do they pick the people? Who gets picked? Who's makes up that 50%? There's an or, which, some people might be a little bit like, that's kind of weird. But if someone's being polygraphed and, they make it through, then the urine test isn't mandatory, right? Because if they pass a test that they haven't taken anything banned, then they shouldn't be able to pop in a urine test because then they would have taken something banned.
Right.
So that's the natural. And then it says natural pro qualifiers such as the Ben Weiders. So Ben Weiders, just also to add some clarity, it's a pro am. So Matt is competing in the pros. There is the amateurs as well. So all open class winners urine tested and polygraphed during check-ins. Didn't give a percentage, right? So is that everybody? I would, from reading this, assume so. If you've specified up here 50%, and then it just says have polygraph testing. So I'm reading that as assuming all athletes are being tested. Then now with the natural pro shows such as the Ben Weiders and the what I would expect the Canadian show mentioned earlier, that's a natural IFBB pro show. Top two in each division are urine tested and again a polygraph backstage. So for for those that maybe don't necessarily know why the polygraph, what's the point? Polygraph is the only way we can backdate testing and natural status, right? Urine testing, it tests what's in your system at the current time, which is very what's the word? Not useless, but there's ways around it, right?
There's too many variables for it to be consistent.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've talked to coaches who coach enhanced, and I've been like, look, man, like, if someone wanted to get stuff out of their system, like how quickly could they do that? And they're like, ah, man, like most people could test clean in a week. That's a problem, right?
Hmm.
Guys can take stuff for years, can take stuff through a prep. We've seen people try to compete in natural shows that have taken stuff before that have been blasted online for it,
Yep.
and rightfully so. And they compete in these natural shows, but will test clean because it's out of their system. So it's like, okay, how do we solve that? And right now, with modern science, the only way we can do that is a polygraph. And like you mentioned earlier, Matt, it's not foolproof, it's not perfect, but it's kind of our only option. So if we want to clean up the sport and give athletes a platform that's as natural as it can be, we need some way to be like, yo, have you taken anything before? Because I urine test you, you could have taken stuff 7 days ago, and by all intents and purposes, you're natural from the urine test. That's not okay. So, you mentioned the NPC having the 3 year rule. A lot of other natural organizations have 10 years, which, can we do lifetime? Probably not. That would be great, but I'm sure we all know that one guy in college football that took,
Yeah.
a week of test and he's like, this isn't for me. Should he never be able to compete in bodybuilding naturally at 30 when he did something at 17, 18? I don't know. People make mistakes. But if we say, okay, 10 years, a decade, I need you to be clean for a decade at least. That's where the polygraph comes in handy, right? So 3 years, I really wish I could have found the study. It just came out recently that they did a study on like myonuclear size or
Yes, the
something like that.
myonuclei. I've seen that. Yeah.
And a decade, there's still differences
Oh yeah.
from
It's I
previous PED use. Okay, so you know
Oh
what I'm
yeah.
talking about. Again, I'm not pulling this out of my ass.
It's true. No, 100%. And I think
So,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. That myonuclei study, I know what you're saying. It's like there is like it's almost like a permanent benefit. And muscle memory also does exist. It's the size of the nucleus is naturally always bigger than it would
Yep.
ever have been naturally post use of any anabolics because it changes your chemistry. It just that
Yeah.
is biologically different now. It's like radiation. You get radiated, your DNA is different, and
Yep.
it's chemicals, and your chemicals made your body different. You are different, and you're less different now that you're natural, but you will never be natural, right? Also, another thing, like that college guy who takes his gear, right? 1 week. And then he decides maybe at 40, 30, whatever, I want to compete. And I've been good, hasn't done anything. I wouldn't even think it's like punishing him to tell him to not compete. It's like, did you benefit in the way where like the myonuclei, like was that 1 week actually, did you put
Yeah.
on like 10
Like
pounds of weight?
substantial difference.
Substantial, right? Like if you cycled hardcore, you've tapped into your potential. The
And beyond
myonuclear thing
that,
has already
right?
occurred. Beyond that, right? Beyond that, 1 second. All right, cool. Yeah,
There we
so
go. That's better.
yeah, awesome. The myonuclei thing, right? So you get that advantage. Okay, cool. Now you'll never be natural again. I don't care what you do, how long it's been. That's irreparable. But also a guy who took it for 1 week. You know what I mean? It's not a punishment to tell him he couldn't do it, but again, you didn't benefit. So that's really a gray area that no one's really going to talk about. I don't want to speculate too hard
Yeah.
because if it morally feels incorrect, you know the answer yourself. And don't let me be the judge. It's between you and God. Uh, so talking about these regulations, like this 3 year rule thing compared to the rest of the game, which is doing like 10 years plus, I do agree. Polygraph is the only way to mitigate it in the sense of like having an edge over the ultimate truth because there's nothing else you can do. You can pass a piss test easily, right?
Yep.
And I know in my heart the people that are serious about competing, if you were to take, I don't know, there has to be research somewhere. I'm going to look it up. But if you were to take a polygraph test, being in a state where you are sort of high nerves, you're about to compete, you're sort of anxious, whatever, like it must be easier to fail if you lie. right? That's just
Well,
what I think.
there's different. So like I've taken three in my competitive career.
I've taken none, so I don't know. But yeah, go ahead.
So, there's a difference between, again, this is me just like kind of thinking about this. There's a difference between like I'm nervous and I'm lying. I'm nervous and I'm
Mm,
lying, right?
I had no
Like
idea.
they're trained to be able to decipher the difference because like, this is speaking from me who is lifetime natural. It's like when a cop pulls up behind you. You've done nothing wrong, but you freak out. You're nervous, right? Same thing, right? You're hooked up to this machine. You've got a heart rate monitor. You've got a thing on your finger. You're sitting there with a dude that's super serious with a laptop in front of him. It's very intimidating, even if you've done nothing wrong. And, no doubt my heart's beating out of my chest as an innocent person, but I've never failed, right? I've never
Yeah.
had any issues, and neither have any of my athletes that have said the exact same thing. Like, dude, I'm freaking out about this polygraph. Like, I know you are. I did too. Trust me, and I will next year. But you pass. You know what I mean? There, there's
Okay,
there's got there's got to be some ways of identifying someone lying. So the polygraph is kind of our only kind of real solution to backdate. So it's nice to see them implementing it because I know when I posted on Natty News about the NPC and the IFBB going down the route of natural shows, that's what a lot of people were commenting is like, look, what are their testing standards? What are they defining as natural? What are they using to test? Outside of just urine testing and at first it didn't seem like they were going to do polygraph, and now we've got Tyler Mannion talking in videos about that they want to implement it. Obviously, you're competing in 2 weeks at the biggest right now natural IFBB NPC show that you are being polygraphed. So they're implementing that because they see the value in it, and they've probably seen the community be like, "Hey, love that you're doing this for us, but I need you to make sure this is legit." Right? Because the natural athletes that are truly natural, like yourself, that want to reach higher levels in the sport, you want it to
absolutely.
be
Hmm.
legitimate, right?
Yeah.
So that's what the NPC is doing. Now, I reached out to the CPA and I asked, and I said, "Are you doing polygraph?" And they told me no.
So I think that, again, first of all, if you were to ask the CPA 2 years ago, are you guys going to have a natural IFBB Pro show? They'll say no. I'm pretty sure they would have said that because that's just what it was. No, it just didn't exist.
Yeah,
And it sucks, but they're catching up. They're not ahead, they're catching up with the natural times. And that's fine because they're at least making the effort and they're
yeah.
jogging in the right direction. That's how I consider that. Now, with the polygraph testing, I think it's going to be a standard. There's no way that you're going to have it at Ben's and you're not going to have it at the natural Canadas, right?
Well, and so just to quickly touch on that, on the rules, I flip back to the rules here on the NPC. Um, Natural IFBB Pro contest will be governed by the same rules used by the NPC worldwide. So that kind of contradicts things a little bit because we just read through the rules. So not only the CPA, but internationally, the NPC affiliates, whatever they may be, should be abiding by this same rule set that we just listed. So, like you said, maybe they're just not quite up to speed yet because then I wrote this down because I was like, in the NPC, to qualify for the Ben Weiders, you need to pass urine and poly. In the CPA, you do not. You don't need to pass a poly. So now you have two different groups of people going to the Ben Weiders. One of them that's passing urine only, and one of them that's passing urine and poly.
Hmm.
So again, are
It's
we
too conflicting.
are
Yeah.
we accusing people of cheating and trying to squeak through the system? No, that's not what we're trying to talk about here, even though people will try to.
Yeah.
But you're giving room for that to happen,
Right. It's like how good
right?
is the filter, right?
That's
What's
right. That's
improving?
right. If this group of athletes has to jump through hurdle A, B, C to get to the show, and this group of athletes just has to get through A, that is not the best filter in the world.
It's
You're
not
muddying the
consistent.
waters. It's
It's
not
not
consistent.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I got thinking even more. It's like, okay, athlete A from the NPC goes through urine, poly, Ben Weiders, urine, poly, boom. Athlete B over here, whether it be the CPA or other affiliates, goes through a urine test, um, then goes to the Ben Weiders and is like, oh shit, I'm going to be polygraphed. I can't do this now. So okay, people are like, sick, you've weeded them out. Now look at the guy that didn't get a qualification because he's natural, lifetime natural. He would have passed the poly. He would have passed all the urine testing.
Yeah,
So that's when
yeah,
me, not only me speaking as an athlete, but me speaking as a coach is like, man, I would hate to be that guy that missed out on a qualification, missed out on a placing, missed out opportunity to progress in the sport because the rules of how do we move up the tiers is a little bit murky.
right.
So going back to what you mentioned, right? They're clearly making steps forward, and maybe this is just something that's like in the works. Can't talk about it yet. Maybe is going to be the 2026 season, whatever it may be. Progress is being made forward. Obviously, we love to see that. But again, I'm passionate about this stuff. That's why I like to talk about it because um, you know, natural bodybuilding, it the basis of it being natural is how do we make sure people are tested properly? How do we ensure that their, natty status is legit? And that's where this conversation is
Yeah,
is being held, right?
100%. And again, I do think they're jogging in the right direction. We are just caught in transition because this is fresh. Let's
Yeah.
think about it. The first natural show in the CPA occurred at least 2015, if it wasn't King Kong, right? So 2015, we're about almost 10 years next year. As a matter of fact, King Kong is in a couple of weeks right now. Was the first show I ever did. Shout out to Chris Wong. He's a
Hmm.
great guy.
Yeah.
But guys, it's like it's fresh, it's new. WNBF has been WNBF. It's been natural. That's the only thing it ever was. So they had all the time in its entire development to be natural and quadruple down on everything to have the most, I guess, developed filter catered towards naturals, right? That's their domain. That they've only ever been there. But CPA, NPC, IFBB as a whole largely has been
Yeah.
the biggest thing
Untested.
ever when it
Yeah.
comes to bodybuilding. Open, it's the headlines, right? And so they didn't pay mind to the things that other more, I would say, niche that divisions or federations have considered. And now those niche things are becoming less niche as natural bodybuilding becomes more popular,
Yeah.
and they've taken notice. And for the an organization as big as that to take notice, in my eyes, is already a W. And then
Yeah.
looking forward to the Ben Weiders being polygraphed for the first time ever, because it hasn't been, right, to my knowledge. It was just urine. And then potentially all the other shows following suit within the amateur to the IFBB Pro Natural ranks. It's like, okay, at least we have one system that's been developed in the last 1 to 3 years that is still developing, that is a filter that we can consider for like truly caring about the quality and the integrity of the athletes that are natural within the CPA, IFBB, and NPC. So, well, the way I look at it is like if you compare it to other divisions, and you might say, "Oh, I don't want to compete here because, it just isn't as the filter isn't as good." The first thing that I do for myself personally is, and I know you're this way, is I'm already delusional. So I think that even if some people have taken stuff like I'm better than you, like that's as a competitor, like that's what I think.
Yeah.
So I let that be less of the argument for myself to not like I would never use that as an argument to justify not competing against somebody at a natural show. Like they're the one cheating, not me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? If they cheat, but I'm better than you, and I'm pretty sure you and I have both beaten people that have taken things. So, outside of that, looking at it, it's only good news, man. Only good news. They might be late. It might not be as relevant.
It's
It might
not
not
perfect
be up to
yet.
speed. Yeah, but hey, it's 2024 and they're making moves. They're doing it. They're adding several shows. Like the amount of NPC shows this year alone, natural, that I've seen
Yeah, I think
is
I think they were
ridiculous.
aiming for 30
Yeah,
across
something of the
the
sort.
US, right? So again, like that's something, I feel like we're so used to it here in Canada with like
Yeah,
the popularity of natural shows, right? Like I've seen some of our natural shows like, King Kong, Coburg at its prime,
Goldberg. Yeah,
obviously the nationals, having higher numbers than some other world championships, right? Like that just goes to show how big the natural stream here in Canada is. So it's not that it's this is all kind of like we're like, yo, why is everybody playing catch up now? We've been running
yeah,
this natural thing for a long time. So it's nice to see them really starting to put the balls in the court of like, okay, how do we legitimize this stream because the demand is there, the popularity is there. We're I've talked to John and Chris both about like double registration for the natural show as opposed to the open show. Um, it's booming, right? And I think
Yep.
people are just in general more health conscious, more cognizant of the side effects and that kind of stuff. So I think it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And, our platform, Natty News, is an example of that.
Oh,
We're almost
100%.
25,000 followers, and that's globally that are very hard into the natural stream and passionate about it. So, and like I said at the beginning, right, when we shared about the Natural Pro Show, like 150 shares that
Yeah, man.
who knows how many thousands of eyes then saw that, right?
Yeah,
So, this isn't to sour on what's being developed and stuff, because at the end of the day, I think you and I are both very optimistic and excited about what's being
oh
developed
yeah, oh
within
yeah,
the natural stream, right? And again, kind of coming back to why I like these conversations, that we just want to see it better. We're passionate about this sport. Like, we are lovers of bodybuilding, but I think just that little bit more, we're lovers of natural bodybuilding.
yeah.
And you know, I just want to see the sport and the people that participate in this beautiful sport get what they want out of it.
Totally, man. Well said. And first of all, congratulations on the 25K Natty News Daily. Awesome.
We're
I
getting there,
see every
man.
time I
We're
see a
so
post,
close.
I'm always like digging in. It's like it's satisfying. It's really good. It's really like well encapsulated. I get a lot of information, all the good stuff about natural bodybuilding on that. So, shout out to you on that. First of all, the next thing, um, it's it's a sweet feeling, but okay, bodybuilding, competing generally isn't healthy. Getting yourself super shredded, can't do it all the time, right? Natural bodybuilding falls under that umbrella. Um, Within that, though, when you consider PEDs, you really look at the way I look at it is like health and fitness. That's you can say that's bodybuilding, health and fitness. Natural bodybuilding actually is health and fitness, but bodybuilding as a whole is just fitness. There's no health. There
Yeah.
might be a health phase for these guys, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whenever I
Whatever.
see that, I'm
Yeah.
like, what is
Less
this?
drugs,
Like, right? You know what I
less
mean? It's like
illegal
health phase, like
substances.
it's scary because it's like, okay, health phase, then what? Non-health phase, like
Literally.
suicide phase, like I don't know. But that's just more where my brain goes. I chuckle. And again, as I said at the start of this, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Like we're just having banter. But that, when I consider that, it's like it's no longer health and fitness. You are doing more to keep yourself on this planet for less time. This is the way I look at it. And with natural bodybuilding, at least, even though getting super shredded all the time isn't the best for you, but natural bodybuilding, at least it's health and fitness. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's also a priority. And with that, I think there's longevity tied to it. My thing is I'd rather bodybuild forever than peak in my 30s and 40s and either die early or just not be able to, be my best. I get an immense, I don't know you're like this too. I get an immense amount of pride looking at my progress pictures or the mirrors and like this is 100% me, food, and the gym. And it's like I own that. Not to say that gear takes it away from you per se, but this is what God did, and I'm just working, and it's I own it. It's like a prime piece of real estate. Nobody can tell you, it's not yours. You developed this land. You did it with your own hands. There's something about it I can't really speak on right now. I don't know how to put it into words, but it's an immense sense of pride. And I was telling one of my old clients today who's thinking about just doing the other thing, going on, hopping on and all that. He's like, what keeps you in this mindset of like never wanting to cross over? And I explained to him what I just told you now about the health and fitness aspect and that, like, what is it really that you are sacrificing your health for? Like, let's be objective here. Since this is
Yeah.
an objective game, you get maybe a $40 medal, maybe a couple hundred or a couple thousand, maybe. This is if you win. This is if you're the best.
Yeah.
And if you're amongst the best of the best, you can have an annual salary of like 60, like best of the best, like 60 to 100K annually, like supplement sponsor or whatever. Okay, awesome. Is that all worth living less on this planet?
Hmm.
And they always say no. I'm like, okay, so then what's the point of even
There's your
considering or
answer.
entertaining that idea? And
Yeah.
then I realized there's like a divergence. It's like I want to live and look a certain way. It's not a divergence, it's a cognitive dissonance with the way that they want to look and the way they want to live. And one thing that Chris Bumstead said, which really like hits in my heart, is it's all about who you are going to be while you're achieving that goal, right? And I know that in my heart that isn't who I would want to be. I would go to bed feeling not only scared but kind of stupid And not to knock anybody, but because it's the trade-off is just so not worth it. Like
Yeah.
you're working out to die faster. You're supposed to live longer working out. Like, you know,
You're working
that's
out to die
it's you know what I
faster.
mean?
That's
I would
funny.
go to bed just with my brain in a knot. That's just in my heart and my brain who I am. So I guess I'm programmed that way. But I told it to him, and it was a clear message that he understood. And I hope that if anybody that is considering to hop on or take gear, SARMs, whatever it is, considers this, because what you have is yours right now. Just think of it. Like, what if you amputated your hand and it was a really amazing hand? Like you had like a Terminator hand. It's like you can do crazy shit with it. Awesome. You have that cool arm. But is it your arm? Is it the arm that you were born with? Is it the arm that like you held your first hand with? Is it like there's no sentimental value, is there? I have that with myself. And you should too if you care about your health. But that's my 2 cents.
I think that's a brilliant way to end this. Beautiful rant. I love it. I love it.
Thanks for the platform, brother.
No, I appreciate you coming on, man. If people want to follow along, where do they find you? 2 weeks out. People want to
Two
get in
weeks out.
touch.
Yeah, it's better. It's safer to just search Matt Butale instead of actually typing my handle. I thought about that earlier on. I'm like, yeah, I changed it. Then I'm like, no, I'll change it back because it's funny. I like it. It makes people
It's
laugh, and I'm here for that. It's cool.
yeah,
But
100%.
yeah, Matt Butale, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm all over the place. Subscribe if you really do like what I do, or if you just want to follow along for the journey. I didn't say it, but I'll say it here because if I ever say it anywhere, it's got to be on the Natty News podcast. That
Facts.
after this show, there is another show in mind. We did allude to it in this episode, but if you don't have good inference skills, that's on you.
I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be that's the one. That's the show. That's the home show because I turned pro on that very stage, right? So
Yeah,
there's something about that I'm going to
something
bring
about
that.
that.
Yeah, you know exactly what's going
I
on.
do. I
Yeah.
do. I do. Cannot wait, man. All right, people. Well, if you enjoyed this episode with Matt and you guys want to follow him along, obviously you know where to find him. And if you're at all interested in this subject matter, if there's comments below you want to talk about, Matt and I both can weigh in on them and we can keep this subject matter going because, like I said, at the end of the day, we just want the sport to be better. So
You
we
got it.
appreciate the support, guys. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Be sure to follow us in Instagram at natty_news_daily. I know Matt said 25K. We're close. We're knocking on 25K. 25K before 2025. That's what I'm running with. So,
It'll be there
you
before you
guys,
blink.
that's right. Yeah. So if you guys aren't subscribed or aren't following on Instagram, please do. And we'll see you guys in the next one.